Unit 1, Teaching Skills, Testing and Exams. In this session, we'll look at the principles of testing, some international exams, and how to prepare students for exams. Now with your partner, look at question 1 of your task sheet and try to come up with 5 reasons why we test students. Do this now. So some of the main reasons are: we test our students to gauge their level. Testing is done to meet expectations, not only of the students, but also of the parents, or current or future employers. We do it to demonstrate progress in our students, to see how much they've learnt within a specific time frame. It can also provide a sense of achievement, to show them that they've reached a certain level of proficiency, and to take pride in this. Testing can help motivation and give students an incentive to work harder. We also do testing to help with exam preparation. We test students for many different reasons. In question 2 of your task sheet, look at these different types of tests and see if you can match them to their description. Do this with your partner now. A placement test is used at the beginning of a course to find out a learner's language level and put them in the appropriate class. A diagnostic test is used to identify strengths and weaknesses that learners have with language skills. It helps the teacher to plan what to teach or what not to teach in future. They may do simple role plays to assess speaking skills. Monitoring helps to identify students who need extra help. An achievement test is used to see how well learners have learnt the language and skills taught in class. Achievement tests are often at the end of term or end of the year and test the main points of what has been taught in that time. A proficiency test is used to see how good learners are at using the target language. The contents of a proficiency test are not chosen according to what has been taught, but according to what is needed for a particular purpose. For example, English for hotel receptionists, English for studying at university, English for general communication. IELTS is an example of a proficiency test. A progress test is used to assess the learning up to a particular point in the course. Teachers might set progress tests weekly or in the middle of a course. Teachers may, for example, set a reading comprehension task, which uses vocabulary or structures students have recently learnt. A discrete item test is used to test competence in individual components of learning. For example, irregular verbs in the past simple, using, for example, gap fills or multiple choice questions. And a performance test is used to measure a person's linguistic ability with no reference to any particular course or training. The ability of candidates to perform particular tasks, usually associated with job or study requirements, is assessed. Assessment, test, and evaluation are 3 terms that are used on this topic. They have similar meanings. Try to match them first, and then we'll give you the definitions. Do this now. So here are the definitions. To assess is to discover or form an opinion on the learner's ability or progress either formally or informally. To test is usually to make a formal assessment of a learner's language. And when you evaluate, you decide on the quality, importance, or effectiveness of something. Teachers may evaluate learners' progress or strengths and weaknesses. Teachers also evaluate their own lessons and think about the things that went well and the things that they could improve on in future lessons. In this module, we will use the 3 terms in a similar way. On your task sheet, look at question 3 and think about the difference between formative and summative assessment. Look at the image to help you. Each type of assessment can be symbolized by one of the flowers. Which one represents formative and which summative? With your partner, discuss this now. Summative assessment is intended to summarize student achievement at a particular time, so the flower on the left, whereas formative assessment is intended to promote further development of student attainment, so the flower on the right. Formative assessment is used to inform the teaching and learning process. Ideally, both the teacher and the student will gain information from the assessment, such as what the student has achieved, what has not been achieved, and what the student requires to best facilitate further progress, and use it collaboratively to plan future learning activities. A good teacher practices formative assessment constantly on an informal basis through classroom observation and interaction. Assessment can be thought of along a formative-summative continuum. Teacher-student conversations are at the formative end of the continuum, and assessment used for credentialing is at the summative end. Summative assessment measures what skills and knowledge the student has at the conclusion of the program. Although it's desirable to use the results to inform further learning, for example, results from end-of-year assessment are used to inform programs for the following year, it is typically the results of the assessment that are the primary focus of attention. Summative assessment is typically used for awarding of qualifications, selection for jobs or university places, for example, or as accountability measures for educational providers. As such, the fairness of the assessment process is very important. Now let's look at some different types of assessment. There is formal and informal assessment. Formal assessment is when a teacher assesses learners and then gives them a formal report or grade to say how successful or unsuccessful they have been. In informal assessments, a teacher decides whether a learner is doing well or not, or whether a course is successful or not. They think about the learner's strengths and weaknesses and about their progress, rather than setting a test or writing an official report. Assessment can be formative or summative. As mentioned before, in formative assessment, a teacher uses formal and informal assessment and information on learners' progress during a course to give learners feedback on their learning or to change their teaching. Summative assessment is a type of assessment done at the end of a course. The focus is on the mark or grade, and feedback is not usually given. Assessment can also be objective or subjective. In objective assessment, each question has one correct answer and is marked without using the examiner's opinion. For example, true or false, or multiple choice questions. In subjective assessment, the examiner's opinion is used to decide on the quality of the answer. There isn't just one correct answer. Types of subjective tests are usually written or spoken. To make these marks or grades reliable, we have to use assessment criteria that describe the performance. For example, assessment criteria for judging learners' writing may be accuracy of grammar, use of vocabulary, spelling and punctuation, and organization of ideas. These terms cross over. Summative assessment is often formal and can be either objective or subjective. Formative assessment is often informal. It can also be either objective or subjective. There is also peer assessment, when learners give their opinions on each other's language or work, and self-assessment, when learners assess themselves and decide how good they think their progress, learning, or language use is. Finally, portfolio assessment is used for formative assessment and also continuous assessment. Learners collect classwork and homework into portfolios, which shows development of their language and skills. It's useful for giving students and parents feedback on progress. Now look at question 4 of the task sheet, which this slide refers to as Part A. This is a gap fill exercise where the words you need to use have been provided in the box. Complete it individually, then compare your answers with your partner. Do paper, scissors, rock, and whoever wins has to summarize the information. Do this now. Now look at question 5 of the task sheet, which this slide refers to as Part B. This is a close, with a Z, exercise, so no words have been provided, and several answers may be possible. Think about why this kind of exercise wouldn't make a good test, and in terms of which factor. Complete question 5 individually, then compare your answers with your partner. Do paper, scissors, rock, and whoever loses has to explain the meaning of practicality, reliability, validity, and the backwash effect in terms of testing. Do this now. So in summary, when testing, we need to consider a test's practicality. A test should be easy to prepare, administer, and mark. Reliability, where you should always get the same results, using clear instructions, unambiguous questions, no guessing, and there is effective criteria for marking. Validity. The test accurately measures what it's supposed to. And the backwash effect is how the test affects teaching and learning. There are many international exams, but these are the most popular in China. On Edmodo, you will see a document called International Exam Summary, which you can refer to for this part of the presentation. IELTS comes from the UK and Australia and tests reading, listening, speaking, and writing. It's mainly used for learners who want to study abroad, but also for immigration to English-speaking countries such as the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. TOEFL is also used for studies abroad, mainly in North America. It also has 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. It can be taken either on paper or on computer. The SAT is used for college entry in the United States, for both native and non-native speakers. It's usually taken by high school juniors and seniors. It measures skills that are needed for academic success in college and has 3 key sections: critical reading, mathematics, and writing. Cambridge English Young Learners English Tests are 3 exams specially designed for students in primary and lower secondary school. There are 3 exams called Starters, Movers, and Flyers. All 3 exams test reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The Trinity College London GCSE exams can be taken by learners of any age, but in China they are used for young learners. They test listening and speaking in a face-to-face situation, and for young learners, the examiner uses game-like tasks. They come in 12 levels, so if the learner enters at the right level, they will pass and get encouraged. So the key points covered so far. There are many different kinds of tests and reasons for testing. Assessment is not just for giving grades, but also for motivating learners and to help them do better. Assessment can be used for giving feedback or for making changes to your teaching. Most regular classroom activities can be used for assessment. We assess language, but also strategies, behavior, and motivation. Key international exams can provide a useful benchmark for studies or work in China or internationally. Preparing students for exams. 。 Some of the problems of preparing students for English exams are: preparing for exams can be very stressful for students. There never seems to be enough time. Exam preparation classes can become very boring. Teachers find it hard to find suitable materials for exam preparation lessons, apart from practice tests. Doing practice tests can be very demotivating for students when they do badly in them. And teaching can often turn into testing. Yet, in many ways, the examination preparation class could be seen more positively. Students are motivated to pass their exams. Students are all working towards the same goal. There's a set syllabus to follow. It's easy for teachers to justify what they do in lessons if it's useful in the exam. There's a real challenge for students and teacher alike. And the satisfaction of knowing you are doing well is very motivating. So we must attempt to build on these positive factors and reduce the negative. Here are some tips and practical suggestions on how to do so. Know the exam and the criteria. Students must know what the exam includes and what the examiner is looking for. Look through old exam papers with your students. Let them discuss what each question is testing. For example, a composition tests grammar, vocabulary, structure, punctuation, organization of ideas, ability to interest the reader, ability to answer the question thoroughly, and sometimes creativity and imagination too. A well-planned course will use a high-quality exam preparation student and teacher's book. There will be a variety of materials and activities. Exam sections can be turned into quizzes, group discussions, or running dictations. It will also cover all sections and skills, will include regular revision, sets achievable goals along the way, and gives the students opportunities for self-assessment and reflection. Practice tests are useful for students to get to know the format of the exam and to get used to the timing, but should be used sparingly. They take up a lot of time. Teachers have a lot of marking to do, and the results can be very demotivating. Merely going through practice tests only shows the students what they don't know and doesn't actually teach them very much. As mentioned previously, it's good to discuss what each question is testing as you go through practice tests, so your students can really hone in on what they need to revise. In order to do well on exams, students need to know a set of relevant exam techniques that they can use to succeed. Whether a task involves answering multiple choice questions or scanning a text for key information, there will be techniques that students can utilize to help them. Whether it's saving on time or using certain clues to help answer a question, these techniques can really boost a class's scores. Students also need to know and understand the meanings of any key question words that they will come across, such as describe and compare. Doing even a little work on this can save on a lot of marks lost due to students answering a question in the wrong way. Conducting a mock exam each week, or more often, before the real thing is a good way of checking that students have taken on board what you've taught them. It also gets them used to working under the pressure of exam conditions and highlights any weaknesses that they might have. The last few days before the exam can then be used for troubleshooting any outstanding problems. Hopefully, your students will be studying what they've learnt in class in their own time. It's important for the teacher, then, to help students to make the most of any time they spend revising. Many students won't know or will have forgotten how to study efficiently. Teachers can help by going over some basic advice, such as making a study schedule, using flashcards to remember vocabulary or terms, or taking a 10-minute break every hour. Encouraging students to highlight errors that they make in class is also useful, as it shows them their weaknesses and what they need to work on. Similarly, homework can be tailored to focus on a student's weak points, whether it's remembering certain references, historical dates, or the structure involved in writing a formal letter. This will not only let students practice key aspects of the test, but also improve their confidence. And here's a useful link on One Stop English, which gives guidance on exam preparation for teenagers in each of the 4 skills. Have a look at this when you have time, or whenever you feel it is pertinent for you. In the next section, you're going to discuss testing and exams in your next OT, and you may be asked to contribute to a forum. By now, you should be familiar with what you need to do to prepare. With a partner, work through the task sheet associated with this input presentation. Familiarize yourself with some of the International English Proficiency exams. See the International Exam Summary on Edmodo. It's especially useful for you to look at the ones regarding young learners. Organize your notes and highlight the key information, concepts, and terms you learnt. Prepare your questions and any comments that you want to raise with your group. Thanks for watching, and see you at the next OT.